Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope you all good and blessed. Before we start the lesson, first let me introduce myself. I'm Siti Hajar Ibrohim from the X4I class in Education of English Department of Unindra University. And today we're going to learn about past tense together, the definition, the usage, the formula to make it easier for you if you want to memorize it, and etc. Before we continue, do you guys already know what is a past tense? For you guys who don't know it yet, you might ever heard it somewhere but just can't decipher what is that precisely yet. But don't worry, I'll tell you right away. So here it is. A past tense is a tense expressing action or state in or as if in the past. So past tense is basically a grammar or a way of how we make a sentence of something that happened in the past. It can be yesterday, last week, last month, last year, an hour ago, or even maybe 1 minute ago. Basically, it's a tense of something in the past. I know some of you may be not familiar with this kind of grammar and find it hard to learn because in Indonesia we don't use any kind of tense. Tense is a way of grammar telling to show the time of the action and the speech spoken. Because in Indonesia, if something happened in the past, we can just simply mention the time of the action. For example, saya makan nasi tadi sore. But the verb didn't change, and if the sentence is turned into negative, it didn't change either. But don't worry, it's not that bad. I believe you can do it. To make it easier for you to learn, someone who invented English decided to divide a tense into two. The first one is the nominal, and the second one is the verbal. And it also goes for the past tense. What is nominal and what is verbal? Uh, nominal, it's a non-verb sentences. It can be adjective, noun, or adverb. While verbal is the verb sentences. It has a different form of verb, usually using verb to. Not usually, but it use verb to. And if a sentence has a to be in it and an adjective or noun or that verb following after the subject and the to be, it can be called a nominal sentence. While the verbal is if any sentence that has a verb following after the subject, it can be called the verbal sentence. First, I made the formula tables of the nominal. It's a non-verb sentence, so it doesn't contain any verbs, but contains adjective, noun, and maybe adverb instead. So maybe you've already learned about simple past tense before this, and the to be's of it. How I is paired with am, and you is paired with are, and she is paired with is, etc. And you can see here the to be changed into was and were instead of am, is, and are. Now that is the difference between a nominal in simple tense and nominal in past tense. In past tense, they use was and were as the to be. After that, the adjective, etc. is following. And you can see the formula of how you make the affirmative sentence, or you can say positive sentence, negative sentence, and interrogative sentence. You can just add some not after the to be in a negative sentence, and you can switch the subject and to be in interrogative sentence, and etc. We can just move on to the examples. You can see the examples of the affirmative sentence here. The first one is I was an elementary student. Student, after the subject I, it comes the past tense to be, was, and after that the noun is following. The noun is an elementary student. And the second one is they were small back then. They is the subject and were is the to be of the past tense, and then comes the adjective small, and then comes the mark of the time back then. If we see back there the formula of the affirmative sentence is subject plus to be plus complement. The complement can be noun, adjective, or adverb. And if we want to make some negative sentence, we have to add the subject plus to be, and you have to add not and then the complement. And if you want to make the interrogative sentence, you have to switch the subject and the to be. So the to be comes first, and then the subject, and then after that the complement, and don't forget the question mark. The second examples is the negative sentence. First one is I was not ugly. I is the subject, was is the to be, and you have to add the not after the to be to make it to make it as a mark as a negative sentence. And after that comes the adjective ugly. And the second one is we were not a doctor. We is the subject, were is the to be of the past tense, not is the following of the to be's after the subject to make it a difference between a affirmative sentence and negative sentence, and a doctor is the noun. And the third examples is the interrogative sentence. You have to switch the to be and the subject. Was I an artist? Was is the subject of is the to be of a past tense for I, and she and he and it. So if you use I for subject, so the to be is was. So was I an artist? Was is the subject, was is the to be, I is the subject, an artist is the noun. The second example is were you late? Were is the to be of the past tense of the subject you. You have to switch the to be and the subject. Were, the to be comes first, and then the subject you, and then after that the adjective late, and don't forget the question mark. The second one is the second type of tense is the verbal. When we want to make a verbal sentences, we don't have to use the to be's. We can simply just add the subject, and then after that, if you want to make an affirmative sentence, subject, and then you have to add the verb. And we use this, and in here we use the verb to, and after that the complement. And if you want to make a negative sentence, you have to add the subject, and after that you add the did and not, and the verb change into verb 1. Why do we use did? Because did is the past form of do. So if you want to make negative sentence in past tense, you use the did, and after that you add the not for make it the difference between a affirmative sentence and negative sentence. So it's subject plus did plus not plus the verb, but it's the verb 1, not the verb 2, because we already used the did, so the verb remains come back to the verb 1. And the complement can be noun or adverb. We don't use adjective because it is a verbal sentence. And the third one is interrogative sentence. It's the same, you have to switch the to be and the subject. Did is the to be, then you add the subject, and then you add the verb 1, and then you add the complement. Let's just go to the examples. First one is affirmative sentence. I ate a cake. I is the subject, ate is the verb 2, a cake is the noun. So I ate a cake is the past tense of a I eat a cake, if you want to make it in simple past tense. And the negative sentence of I ate a cake is I did not eat a cake. I is a subject. You have to add the did and not for make it a difference between negative and affirmative. And eat, the ate in affirmative sentence change into eat in negative sentence, and then you add a cake in the last of the part of it. And the interrogative sentence of the I ate a cake is did I eat a cake. Did is as I can say the first one is the do form of the did is the past tense of do, so we use the did, and you add the subject I, and then the verb 1 eat, and then the noun comes the noun. Same goes for they drove last night. Affirmative sentence. The negative sentence, they did not drive last night. The interrogative sentence, did they drive last night? Next one is, she slept in her room. The negative sentence is, she did not sleep in her room. And the interrogative sentence is, did she sleep in her room? Like that. The next is the kinds of verbs. So in English there is two kinds of verbs. The first one is regular verbs and the second one is the irregular verbs. To make it easier for you to understand, regular verb is when it changes into verb 2 and verb 3, then you just have to add suffix ed in the end of the word. For example, turn is the verb 1, the verb 2 is turned, the verb 3 is turned, and smile is the verb 1, the verb 2 is smiled, the verb 3 is smiled. So that's the regular verbs. You just have to add ed, the suffix at the end of it. And the second type of verbs is irregular verbs. The other one is irregular verbs. It's a verb who has a different form when changed into verb 2 and verb 3. For example, run, or you can say just fall. The verb 1 is fall, the verb 2 is fell, and then when you have to, and if you want to change it into verb 3, it changes into fallen. Same goes for see, verb 1, and then verb 2 is saw, and then verb 3 is seen. And for eat, is a whole lot different from verb 1 to verb 3. Verb 1 is eat, verb 2 is ate, and then verb 3 is eaten. Okay, that's it, guys. That was the past tense we've been talking about. Your duty is to keep learning about it, and if you had difficulty in learning past tense, you can search on Google or ask your teachers or maybe friends who understand it well. Okay, I think that is all for today. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good luck. Thank you and see you later.